正面能量好棒啊！我要坏掉啦。
And we're back with Dr. Bronfeld, okay, hypertrophy expert. I want to talk about hypertrophy. How does it occur? What are the fundamental ways? You talked about mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. Can you explain what those are?
Yeah, there are three primary factors that I've ascertained from the research, and certainly there are others that can be considered secondary, somewhat secondary, but it is mechanical tension, and that's the primary driving stimulus. That is basically the forces that are acting on the muscles, and that's what drives your intracellular signaling. And basically it happens through a process called mechanotransduction, where these forces, these mechanical forces, are transduced, they are converted into chemical signals within the muscle, and that drives a hypertrophic response. It's going to increase your anabolic signaling and decrease your catabolic signaling.
Right.
Your metabolic stress basically is a buildup of metabolites, and these are breakdown products from the production of energy that are accrued during training. And your primary ones are inorganic phosphate and lactic acid, and certainly there are others. And the lactic acid tends to be a biggie because it also not only is there lactate, but the hydrogen ions drive a reduction, increased acidosis, a reduction in acid base, so that you're basically there's at least theoretically that can enhance the process as well. And there's multiple factors attributed to metabolic stress whereby that drives hypertrophy, including increased fiber recruitment, growth factor responses, reactive oxygen species, even cell swelling can be mediated by that. So other factors involved in those. And finally is damage, and that basically are perturbations. When you're working out, there's going to be these small micro tears that are formed.
Sure.
Now, too much damage is certainly a bad thing. You don't want to get rhabdo. That's not going to drive a hypertrophic response.
Right.
But there seems to be at least some rationale for a sweet spot where if you accrue a favorable, if you will, amount of damage that can drive. Certainly it's been shown that it drives satellite cell response. How much over and above the non-damaging exercise will it drive? It's hard to tell, but
right.
there's other factors, inflammatory responses, which drive what are called myokines.
Do we always need Dr. Schoenfeld to be sore, that DOMS? Do we need it therefore?
So that's a great question. So certainly you can have soreness, you can have soreness without having, you can have damage without having soreness,
right.
But usually you can't have soreness without having some DOM. So it is, to at least some degree, the soreness does indicate that you have damaged the tissue to some degree, but certainly you should not be using soreness as a gauge of how successful your work at it.
Right.
Now, it does give you a gauge that you might be damaging the muscle, but many people can have damage within their muscle and not be sore. There's other processes that do affect that. So what I will say is that DOMS is somewhat of an indicator of damage, and like I said, damage does drive hypertrophy,
right.
But don't think just because you didn't get sore, you didn't have a successful workout.
我就是卡里马索。 不是卡你老母，是卡你妈索，你嘛是想要洗吧？挑我的就对了，我卡你妈索，之所以能练那么壮，全都靠我手上这管。天上地下绝无仅有，传世皇家顶级奶昔，现在特价只要1800，只要1800，喝了卧推马上180，体脂肪只剩5%，每天都跳塔巴塔，正面能量好棒啊！